fair use, fair use. This is not for monetary purposes, but strictly educational and edification. Fair use, fair use. Shalom, first and foremost, giving all praises, honor, glory, and worship unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Chakudash. Double honors unto the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and salutations unto Yahweh. Prepare war.
A show of force broadcast on Venezuelan TV as government media reports countrywide military exercises amid growing tension with the US. Venezuela's defense minister inspected air defense systems and warned Washington about any attempt to overthrow the government. The military exercises were held as President Nicolas Maduro signed into law a new national defense framework to integrate civilian and military forces.
By signing this law, all integral defense commands that bring together all public institutions of the Venezuelan state, the military and all popular power must be activated at dawn. So by signing this, the order must be activated for integral defense commands to be established, structured and put to work in order to be prepared.
Now, one point I'm going to mention, before I mention that, this is concerning the impending war between America and Venezuela. But one point I'll mention prophetically is that what that which was just mentioned, and that civilians will be merged to the military sector towards the military campaign. And what are jobs of civilians? To uphold the economy, to maintain industry, agriculture, especially in a place like Venezuela, and things of that nature. But now it's been shifted primarily and directly, towards the military campaign that they have to undergo against the siege that's coming from America. All right, now this is prophecy. Well, I was already going to get this scripture, but that point in itself, I was going to start at verse 9, but the point I want to emphasize is in verse 10. So I'll just start at verse 9. I'll go ahead and jump into the scripture. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. The Gentiles means nations, all the nations of the earth, which includes the Israelites as well. You know, now the elect of the nation of Israel are of a different cloth and have a different purpose in these latter days. But we likewise are preparing war in the spirit, for spiritual warfare, and also to receive spiritual powers in that hour. But it says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, which I'm pretty sure that word Gentiles is Goyim, which means nations. It says, prepare war, wake up the mighty man. And what you saw on the screen, right, was Maduro as a mighty man. Which we're going to get when I continue the video. You're going to see soldiers. You're going to see missile defense systems. You're going to see anti-aircraft systems, missiles. And that's the waking up of the mighty man. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords. So turn the civilian sector towards the military campaign. You know, so people aren't going to be focusing on gathering crops, agriculture. If they do gather crops, it's going to be for the sake of maintaining the military campaign. All right. You know, industry isn't going to be a focus, because what America is going to do, they're going to strategically strike the economic and military infrastructure of Venezuela. So Caracas is going to be probably laid waste. The major cities of Venezuela laid waste. The military bases laid waste. But this isn't Iraq, and I'm going to get to that point earlier, because an individual on that video, in the latter part of the video, compared to Iraq, which was a terrible comparison. It was a novice comparison from a military perspective. I'm going to go more in detail on that a little bit later. But it says, beat your plowshares into swords. So no more focus on the industrial, agricultural sector, but more so the military. And your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say, I am strong. So Venezuela was once weak, but now they're saying they're strong because, one, America is overstretched. Two, they have allies, strong allies, in the likes of China and Russia, who are deeply invested in Venezuela. And they understand that the domino effect can be horrific. And you also have the other Israelites of South America, because the South Americans are Israelites. So those other countries, a lot of them are going to side with Venezuela in this war. Assemble yourselves and come. Now let me go back to the video.
Maduro says US President Donald Trump is trying to overthrow him. Trump denies that.
There are reports that you are considering strikes within Venezuela. Is that true?
No.
That you made a decision on that?
No, it's not true.
Well, we obviously know he's lying. He might be the greatest, when I say the greatest, the most prominent liar of all time. Speaking of the President Donald Trump. I mean, he just lies through the thin of his teeth. As it is written, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. He has war in his heart. Oh, we don't plan on strike in Venezuela. But they have strike groups, aircraft carriers. What is that for then? Why do you have that over there? You've been striking and agitating them by killing fishermen. Oh, they were drug dealers. Prove it. You mean to tell me you don't have the technology and the capability to disarm and stop those ships and get those people that's on them to gather intel, maybe to gather and show the drugs? You just drone strike them? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. You're lying, as you always do. And we have to be mindful and careful not to be overly emotional at these things, because in our heart, we know that the people of Venezuela are our saint. They're our kindred. They're our blood. They're Israelites from the tribe of Asher. So you can get emotional because they are our genetic family. But we have to consider that they have not adhered to this word. They continue to worship idols. Cesare Borgia, which is what they call Jesus Cristo. All right, Jesus Christ. They continue to worship these deities and commit wicked acts. So the Lord is judging them at the same time. So we have to be soberly minded in these things and know that we and our purpose is separate from theirs, but ultimately it's all to fulfill prophecy.
And that's despite a build-up of US naval forces in the region that Washington says is part of what it describes as its war on drugs. The US has bombed more than a dozen boats off the Venezuelan coast since September, and more recently in the Eastern Pacific. Washington says the vessels were targeted because they were transporting drugs. More than 70 people have been killed. Trump has downplayed reports of the US expanding its contacts with opposition groups inside Venezuela. Maduro's defense minister says his country is ready to respond to any US military escalation.
We're lovers of peace. We do not want war either here or anywhere in the world. But if they come to touch Venezuela...
And these are the mighty men preparing war.
They will find us here.
Foreign leaders, some members of Congress, legal experts, and family members of those killed in the attacks on boats have demanded proof of Washington's claims. France added its voice to increasing concern over what Washington may be planning, saying US military operations in the Caribbean violate international law. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera.
Well, the U.S. has been rapidly increasing its military presence in the Caribbean. Since August, more than 10,000 American soldiers and fighter jets have been deployed near Venezuela. It's the largest deployment of U.S. forces in the region in decades. And as we mentioned, the U.S. Navy's largest aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford, has now arrived in the southern Caribbean. It's the largest ship of its kind in the world, with its own air wing of more than 75 fighter jets, helicopters, and early warning aircraft. A Navy destroyer carrying guided missiles, helicopters, and Marines is this U.S. carrier that's been deployed to the region.
To South America waters. The carrier is very capable, but militarily,
the carrier is not very capable. It's capable of doing destruction, but guess what? The carrier can take destruction in itself. They've been supplied with Russian missile defense, Russian artillery via missiles, which have the capability of seeking the aircraft carrier, and that would be a major blow to America. You know how expensive aircraft carriers are? They're really sitting ducks in modern warfare against formidable missiles.
it's a bit out of place. This kind of a carrier strike group is designed to fight in contested airspace.
And the thing is, there's so many assets on those aircraft carriers, from personnel, airplanes. If that aircraft carrier sinks, you can have 20, 30 jets on that carrier.
So if the U.S. were to go to war with Iran in the Gulf, or China in the Pacific, then you would want to have a lot of air power that in a mobile platform. Here, the U.S. already has air superiority, so it's perhaps designed more for symbolic purposes, to show U.S. power, and as your package said, perhaps encourage the Venezuelan military to replace Maduro with another leader leading to free elections.
So you seem to say that the message that's being sent is somewhat symbolic. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, if the U.S. were to invade Venezuela, the more useful are these thousands of Marines on amphibious ships. If the U.S. were to conduct airstrikes on targets inside Venezuela, it would probably, it can use the carrier aircraft, but it can use a lot of other aircraft too that are nearby, or even launched from the United States. It can use drones. So the military purpose of the carrier is a bit unclear, but certainly symbolically, it's a massive ship. It definitely shows U.S. power in the region to the Venezuelans and others.
Isn't this, seen or described by many as provocation, though? Because there could be a real risk of miscalculation or confrontation between the U.S. and Venezuelan forces. And like some Venezuelan officials have said, that their country will respond to any provocation.
Right, but it's not really clear what they could do. The Venezuelan military doesn't have the capacity to attack the carrier. My assessment is that the U.S. were actually to invade the country, the military would try and organize a guerrilla campaign. So it would resemble what we saw in Iraq after.
No, it would not resemble something similar to Iraq. Venezuela is a mountainous rainforest. It is not flat land. It's not desert. Your aerial reconnaissance isn't going to be as sufficient as somewhere as Iraq. It's not going to be a walk in the park by any means. And even in Iraq, you got bogged down. What is Iraq today? Is it victory for America? And the Venezuelans will have the aid not only of their geographic, not only will they have a geographic stronghold, being in a mountainous, greenery rainforest vicinity, they will also have the aid of other nations, other surrounding nations. I don't believe the other South American nations will sit by, and especially the people of those other nations, especially when they see large parts of Venezuelans dying. But all this is going to be recorded. This isn't 1980 something. This is going to be recorded at a very large rate. And it's going to be a lot of civilian casualties, which is going to cause an uproar of the people of South America and the people around the world. Venezuela isn't Gaza. It's not a one city. We're talking about a humongous country. We're talking about an actual military, a standing military that has the aid of Russia and China and Iran. A guerrilla campaign would be more similar to, and they've been preparing for the guerrilla campaign for decades. It'll be more similar to something of the such of Vietnam.
March 2000
and America lost that war in Vietnam. America got bogged down in Vietnam. Took a tremendous amount of casualties. And that was the apex of the American empire in that time period. Well, really, you can argue that the 40s and the 60s was the apex. But Vietnam ended the apex of the American empire. And from there, it's been a gradual decline. But America spread thin. It is geopolitically, socially at home is terrible. They're bogged down in Ukraine. They have to deal with the Iran threat. They have to deal with China. And what are they going to try to do this simultaneously while taking Taiwan? Think. It's not going to work out.
And three, the U.S. could certainly defeat the regular Venezuelan military, occupy the country, but then you're going to get into this protected
and they're not going to be able to occupy some parts of the country. They're not going to be able to go up into the mountains and up into the forests and deal with those guerrillas.
Insurgency and as we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan.
And the population, the massive majority of the population is firmly against America. You had large parts of the population that were against Saddam. It was a Sunni Shiite thing. You don't have that how do you say it? That secular or not secular, sectarian difference. I believe I'm saying that correctly. That's not present in Venezuela. Yes, you have certain groups of opposition, but it's not to the extent of what was taking place in Iraq. And also in Iraq, you had the majority of the Arab nations and the world were against Saddam Hussein and the Iraqi military. It's not the same situation in South America. You had Russia, and then also you had NATO come in with America. Is NATO going to come in with America for a campaign against Venezuela? I doubt it. The Iraqis didn't have the support of the Chinese. They didn't have the support of the Russians. They didn't have the support of the Iranians. The Iraqis did not have the geographic advantage that the Venezuelans have. So it by no means will it be any form of a walk in the park.
And this is not very popular in the U.S. So I still think President Trump is not going to order a full-scale invasion of Venezuela.
Venezuela, meanwhile, is holding its own sort of 2 days of national.
And you had the American personnel on board to go to war against Iraq. The Americans are not on board to go to war against Venezuela. You've been running the same flea flicker with the false flags. A lot of people have caught on to the false flags. This latter generation, people in their 20s and early 20s and whatnot, they're not fit for war. Psychologically, a lot of them are weak compared to the people in their 20s and the early 2000s and 1990s.
Drills. What message do you think Caracas is sending with this?
And a lot of these people are anti-American and anti-government, the people who live in America. Why? Because the government is corrupt and evil, and they've shown themselves to be tremendous liars. And they've been found out.
Display, and to whom?
Well, I think to whom is a great question, because some of it is to the U.S. saying, look, we're going to fight back. The military supports Maduro, but it's probably also designed to intimidate the domestic audiences, the military people throughout the country. Don't try and overthrow the government. Don't try and challenge us. We still have a lot of means of violence to deal with you.
Okay, Richard Weiss, you're a senior fellow at the NATO Defense College, speaking to us from Washington, D.C. this hour. Thank you.
All right, so that's it. I do hope this lesson was edifying.